Every single morning, millions of people look in the mirror, and they basically rely on the exact same strategy to break a stubborn habit.
Yeah, the classic mirror pep talk.
Right. They stare themselves down and use sheer, just brute force willpower. They say, I am done.
Yeah.
Never again.
Absolutely.
And yet, almost universally, by the time evening rolls around, that strategy just completely fails them.
It does. And the thing is, they're completely sincere in that morning moment, too. Like, the resolve is very real.
Oh, for sure.
But relying on willpower to change a deeply ingrained evening behavior, I mean, it's like trying to hold back the tide with a broom. It just ignores the fundamental mechanics of how human biology and really how habit formation actually operates.
Which is pretty much the absolute definition of behavioral frustration.
It really is.
And that brings us to the mission of today's deep dive. We are unpacking a highly practical, habit-driven approach to quitting or, just cutting back on alcohol. And specifically, we're looking at how to do this without relying on traditional recovery programs like AA.
Yeah, we are really looking at the architecture of daily behavior change today.
Exactly. So today's insights come from a platform called Live Better Sober, specifically an article titled How to Stop Drinking Without AA. And it's written by Susan Gast.
Right.
To give you some context on her credibility, Susan will be celebrating 30 years alcohol-free in January 2027. So she is sharing what practically works on the ground level for the human brain.
30 years. I mean, that provides a massive data set of personal lived experience.
It really does. And for you listening right now, whether you are evaluating your own evening habits, or maybe you're trying to support a friend, or honestly, if you're just someone fascinated by behavioral psychology, this deep dive is going to offer some serious aha moments about how your routines actually function.
Oh, absolutely.
Because it turns out we often fight our own biology when we try to change. Okay, let's unpack this.
Yeah. So to understand why Susan's habit-based approach succeeds where those morning declarations fail, we have to look at the neuroscience of willpower.
Right, because willpower isn't just a character trait.
Exactly. Motivation, that driving force behind looking in the mirror and swearing off a bad habit, is essentially an emotion. It lives in the prefrontal cortex, which is the logical, forward-thinking part of the brain.
Okay.
But emotions are chemically temporary. They peak and they fade.
So the prefrontal cortex just gets tired.
Highly tired, yeah. By the time 5 p.m. arrives, after a full day of making decisions at work, navigating traffic, or, managing a household, you are experiencing severe decision fatigue.
Which we all feel.
Right. Your prefrontal cortex is entirely depleted. So at that point, the brain delegates control to the basal ganglia, which is the brain's autopilot center.
The autopilot.
Okay, it doesn't want to make a choice. It simply wants to execute the pre-programmed script for the evening because, that saves precious cognitive energy.
That makes so much sense. I kind of think of it like trying to stop a moving car by dragging your feet like the Flintstones.
That is a great analogy.
Right. Like instead of just steering the car onto a different road, you're just using raw friction, which is exhausting. So when people try to stop drinking by just telling themselves, don't drink tonight, they are essentially setting a negative goal.
Yes, exactly.
The brain reaches into the filing cabinet for the evening script, finds a sticky note that just says, not this, and panics because there is no alternative instruction.
Right. The brain requires a positive action to replace a negative one.
It needs directions.
It does. The question isn't, how do I not drink? The vital question is, what specific physical action will I take instead when the familiar trigger shows up?
I want to pause on that because I think this is where we really have to look at the actual timeline of an evening. Susan breaks this down into incredibly actionable phases.
She does.
And she points to 5 p.m. or, whenever your specific workday ends as the most critical transition point. But let me ask you this. If someone doesn't usually pour their first glass of wine until, say, 8 p.m., why is Susan so fixated on 5 p.m.?
What's fascinating here is a psychological concept called context-dependent memory.
Context-dependent memory.
Right. The brain links certain environments and transitions to specific behaviors. So the trigger for that 8 p.m. drink doesn't actually start at 8 p.m.
It starts earlier.
It starts the moment you close your laptop or walk through the front door or when the house finally quiets down. That transition signals to the basal ganglia that the evening sequence has officially begun.
Oh, wow. So the dominoes start falling hours before the glass is ever poured.
Precisely. And Susan's strategy is a deliberate 10-minute interruption to scramble that signal.
Okay, how does that work?
The moment that transition hits, you must alter the physical context. The source suggests changing your clothes immediately upon finishing work. like right away.
Just to disrupt the pattern.
Exactly. Leave the kitchen entirely for 10 minutes, go for a short walk, make a non-alcoholic drink first, or immediately put on a podcast or an audiobook.
So you are essentially creating a hardware interrupt for the brain.
Yeah, exactly. By changing your clothes or physically removing yourself from the kitchen, you are altering the sensory inputs.
The brain gets confused.
Right. It looks around, notices the different context, and says, oh, wait, we aren't running the usual script tonight. You disrupt that automatic behavioral chain before it gains any momentum.
Okay, so I have successfully changed my clothes at 5 p.m. I have left the kitchen. The initial domino has been stopped.
Good, step one.
But biology is incredibly stubborn. What happens when we reach the next major hurdle in Susan's timeline, which is roughly 7 p.m.?
Right, the actual craving window.
Yeah, because my brain might have been distracted at 5, but now it is actively demanding its usual reward.
This requires us to look at habit substitution, which, honestly, it demands some real introspection.
Okay.
The insight here is that nightly drinking is rarely about the alcohol itself. It is a delivery mechanism for a feeling.
A delivery mechanism, I like that.
Yeah, it's a chemical shortcut to relief, or comfort, or just permission to switch off the anxiety of the day. To break the loop, you have to map a new behavior to that specific emotional need.
Right, and the source outlines some very specific replacements based on the underlying feeling.
It does.
Like if the feeling you actually need to resolve is stress, the replacement could be a hot shower or some intentional stretching or designated quiet time.
Exactly.
Or if the trigger driving the urge is loneliness, the replacement is texting a friend or logging into an online support group.
And if it is boredom, you need active engagement, right?
Yeah.
Like picking up a hobby or starting a really compelling TV series.
Right.
If it's pure overwhelm, the prescription is a stripped-down, super simple routine and an unusually early bedtime.
I have to challenge this a bit, though, because I think a lot of people listening will feel the exact same skepticism. Let's be entirely real here. A hot shower or sending a quick text message to a friend sounds very pleasant. But does it actually compete with the immediate heavy chemical reward of a glass of wine when you are deeply overwhelmed at 7 p.m.?
That is a really crucial pushback. And the honest answer, in the immediate, short-term, acute sense, no.
Yeah, I didn't think so.
A hot shower does not flood your brain's reward center with the same massive, unnatural spike of dopamine that alcohol does. Alcohol artificially forces those neurotransmitters to fire.
So when you remove it,
you feel a massive deficit.
your brain basically throws a tantrum because it wants the heavy chemical hit, not just, warm water.
It does. But we have to look at the mechanism of dopamine receptor downregulation.
What does that mean?
When you flood the brain with alcohol every night, the brain actually reduces its number of active dopamine receptors just to handle the overload. Your baseline level of joy and relaxation drops.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So the purpose of the high shower or the stretching routine isn't to magically replicate that intense chemical high of a substance.
So you aren't trying to out-dopamine the alcohol.
Not at all. You are trying to treat the underlying nervous system. A hot shower physically engages the parasympathetic nervous system, which lowers your heart rate and reduces cortisol.
Okay, so it's a physiological shift.
Exactly. Through daily repetition over weeks, you are fundamentally teaching the brain a new, sustainable way to decompress. You are lowering the baseline anxiety of the entire evening so that the craving just has less fuel to burn.
That makes total sense.
It is a recalibration, not a one-to-one replacement of intensity.
You are basically building a new off-ramp for the nervous system.
That's a great way to put it.
But even with the best hot shower in the world, the urge to drink is still going to flare up. Like the amygdala is still going to sound the alarm, especially in those first few weeks.
Oh, inevitably.
So how do we handle the acute in-the-moment cravings when the brain is practically screaming for its usual routine?
Well, a good plan doesn't prevent cravings, right?
Yeah.
A good plan dictates your response when they inevitably arrive.
Right.
The source advises a profound shift in tactics here. When the craving hits, you delay instead of fighting. You simply wait 20 minutes.
Delay.
Yeah. Drink some water first, eat something substantial, physically change rooms, or just step outside.
Just 20 minutes. But why that specific number? Like, why not just fight the urge until you fall asleep?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it comes down to the physiological half-life of a stress response.
It's a half-life.
Yeah. When a craving hits, the amygdala fires a panic signal. It feels like a life or death emergency. And it feels permanent.
It totally feels like the feeling will never end unless you just give in.
Exactly. But neurochemically, an emotional urge is like a wave. It builds, it peaks, and it inevitably crashes. The physiological rush of adrenaline and cortisol that accompanies a severe craving usually metabolizes and subsides within about 20 minutes.
Assuming you don't feed it with more panic.
Right, assuming you don't fight it and feed the panic.
So you can't punch a wave to stop it, you just have to surf it until the water flattens out.
I love that, yes. And the psychological trick is just as important. If you tell yourself in the middle of a massive craving, I can never drink again for the rest of my life, the mountain is just too high to climb.
It's too much.
The brain becomes completely overwhelmed. But if you tell yourself, I'm not making a forever decision right now, I just have to surf this wave for 20 minutes, you shrink the timeline down to a manageable task.
You are hacking your own sense of overwhelming dread.
Exactly.
But this brings us to a really validating point from the source material regarding what happens after you surf that wave. Because Susan points out that early on, your alcohol-free evenings are going to feel really restless.
They are.
They might feel emotionally flat, highly boring, or just deeply unfamiliar.
This is the discomfort phase.
Right. It totally reminds me of phantom limb syndrome, but applied to human habits.
Oh, that's interesting.
Like the brain is reaching out for a routine, a specific chemical response that just isn't there anymore. It's grabbing at empty air, so of course the evening feels empty and boring. But how do we stop people from misinterpreting this temporary boredom as a complete failure of the process?
That misinterpretation is honestly the most dangerous trap in habit change. People feel that flatness, that restlessness, and they assume, well, my life is worse without this habit. The plan isn't working.
Right, I must be doing it wrong.
But we have to understand neuroplasticity here. That physical discomfort is literally the sensation of your brain rewiring itself in real time.
Oh, wow. It is the friction of building new neural pathways.
Yes. When alcohol has been part of a nightly routine for months or years, the brain expects it. It has completely optimized itself for that input. So the boredom isn't a sign of failure. It's a sign of a chemical recalibration.
Because of the receptors.
Exactly. The brain is slowly upregulating those dopamine receptors we talked about earlier. Over time, as you consistently push through those 20-minute delays, those new, quiet evenings stop feeling empty, and they slowly start feeling genuinely peaceful.
The volume knobs in your brain are basically resetting themselves to a normal level.
Right. But you have to weather the transition. You have to allow the brain actual time to remodel.
Which brings us to the final piece of the evening puzzle. Surviving those difficult 20-minute windows isn't just an exercise in grim endurance.
No, not at all.
It is about shifting how you view yourself when your head finally hits the pillow. Susan emphasizes the absolute importance of the bedtime routine.
Because how you end the night dictates the neurochemical state you wake up with the next morning.
The goal of this habit-based approach is to end the night with a deliberate win, instead of waking up frustrated or guilty.
Right.
Before bed, you actively acknowledge one thing you did well that day. You strictly avoid doom scrolling, you avoid self-criticism, and you prepare something calming for the next morning. You might set up your coffee maker or lay out comfortable clothes.
It is a philosophy centered entirely on progress over punishment.
Which is huge.
It is. Traditional recovery models, and this isn't universally true, but it happens often enough to note, they can sometimes feel overwhelming because they carry the heavy pressure of lifelong perfection.
Right.
The idea that if you slip up once, you are back to day one.
You lose all your accumulated chips, which can lead to a massive shame spiral.
Yes. And this habit-based approach removes that shame spiral entirely. It focuses on manageable steps and daily achievable expectations. Susan even offers a specific course mentioned in the article called 66 Days to Break the Nightly Drinking Habit.
66 days.
Yeah, it illustrates this structured day-by-day timeline perfectly. It takes an average of 66 days to form a new habit, and the goal is simply stringing small, successful evenings together so your internal confidence slowly rebuilds.
So what does this all mean when we look at the entire arc of the evening? We have the 5 p.m. context interruption, the 7 p.m. habit substitution, the 20-minute wave surfing for cravings, and the bedtime win.
It's a full blueprint.
It really frames this whole process as a long-term construction project rather than a demolition job.
A construction project is a very apt way to conceptualize it.
Yeah, because when a lot of people think about quitting a habit, they view it like bringing a wrecking ball to their current life. They focus entirely on tearing down the bad behavior.
Right.
But if all you do is tear down your house, you're just left standing in the rain in an empty dirt lot,
Yeah.
Shivering and miserable.
Exactly. You have removed the shelter without providing a replacement.
What this approach shows is that you are actually laying the foundation for a new house. You are building better sleep architecture, calmer mornings, more self-respect, and significantly less mental exhaustion.
Yes.
But you can't build a new house with one giant emotional swing of a hammer in front of the morning mirror. It happens one brick, one evening at a time.
You are methodically replacing the structure.
Yep.
And that really highlights exactly who this specific approach is tailored for.
Who is that?
This is for people who might function perfectly normally during the day. Like they go to work, they handle their responsibilities, they seem totally fine to the outside world, but they consistently struggle with their autopilot behaviors at night.
The high-functioning individuals who just feel stuck in a private loop?
Yes, they want sustainable, neuroscience-backed habit change. They want practical tools rather than formal labels or attending group meetings.
Right.
They need calmer routines, healthier coping mechanisms for their nervous system, and above all, realistic expectations for how long neuroplasticity actually takes.
Let's summarize what we've unpacked here today, because there is a very clear blueprint to follow.
Let's do it.
If you want to change a stubborn evening habit, you have to fundamentally ditch the reliance on perfect, flawless willpower. Your prefrontal cortex will fail you when you are tired.
It is a biological certainty.
Instead, you deliberately interrupt the autopilot at that crucial 5 p.m. transition point by changing your physical context.
Right, change the clothes.
Yep. Then you find out what feeling your nervous system is actually craving at 7 p.m., and you replace the emotional reward with a new baseline lowering action.
Like the hot shower.
Exactly. When the craving inevitably hits, you don't fight it forever. You surf the physiological wave by delaying for just 20 minutes. And finally, you end your night focusing on daily progress, avoiding the shame spiral of lifelong perfection.
This raises an important question, though, when you step back and look at the underlying mechanics we've discussed today.
I like where this is going. What is it?
Well, we have been talking specifically about alcohol and Susan Gast's methodology for cutting back, but the architecture of habit change, context-dependent memory, dopamine downregulation, the 20-minute half-life of a craving is entirely universal.
Oh, I see.
If this delay and substitution framework can successfully dismantle something as chemically and emotionally stubborn as a nightly drinking habit, what other stubborn, unwanted habits in your life could you quietly dismantle using this exact same evening blueprint?
Wow. I mean, think about stress eating or lying in bed doom scrolling for 2 hours every night, or even chronic procrastination. The triggers and the dopamine seeking are the exact same autopilot loop.
Exactly. The brain is running the exact same script, just with a different prop.
That is profound. The next time you find your brain running a script you didn't consciously choose, remember that you don't have to fight your own biology out of sheer willpower.
You really don't.
You just need to interrupt the sequence, surf the wave for 20 minutes, and start laying the bricks for a new routine. Thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive. We highly encourage you to take these insights, look at your own evening transitions, and see where you might be able to build a better baseline for yourself. We'll catch you on the next one.